They sent me a letter demanding thousands in HOA dues, but I don't even live in their neighborhood. At first, I thought it was a clerical error, until the fines kept piling up, each one more outrageous than the last. Phone calls went unanswered, emails were ignored, and suddenly neighbors were whispering about me like I'd done something wrong. Every petty rule felt personal, every threat more absurd than the last. And then, the final notice arrived, declaring they were taking me to court. How could a group of people I've never met have so much power over my life? Drop your location in the comment. Let's see how far this story reaches around the world. Life in my quiet little neighborhood was simple, predictable, perfect in its own way. My mornings started with the smell of fresh coffee, birds chirping outside my window, and a short walk around the block. The neighbors waved as I passed. Kids played on manicured lawns, and everyone seemed to know everyone else, or at least they thought they did. I'd always believed that living outside an HOA meant freedom, no unnecessary rules, no fines, no hidden agendas. I had a small garden I tended carefully, a driveway I kept clear, and a mailbox that always had a smiley sticker on top. My home wasn't just a place, it was my sanctuary. Yet even in this seemingly ordinary life, subtle signs of tension lingered. A neighbor glancing disapprovingly at my fence, another whispering as I walked by, and the faint but unmistakable sense that someone was keeping tabs. I never imagined that this peaceful rhythm could be upended by a group I didn't even belong to, a committee that claimed the power to dictate what I could or couldn't do, who I could talk to, and how I should live. That first envelope, stamped with the HOA's emblem and threatening legal action for unpaid dues, was the first crack in my world. And in that moment, I realized that what I thought was my safe, ordinary life was about to collide with something absurdly unfair and incredibly dangerous. After that first absurd letter arrived, I tried to dismiss it as a simple mistake. Surely the HOA would realize I wasn't a member, that I didn't live in their neighborhood, and that this was a clerical error. But the days that followed proved me wrong. Another letter came, more formal this time, stamped with threatening legal language and a growing balance of unpaid dues. The amount was outrageous, enough to make my stomach twist, and each line of the letter felt like an accusation, personal and invasive. I called the number listed on the notice. The voice on the other end was polite at first, then impatient. "Sir, you're on our records. You owe these fees?" I explained calmly that I wasn't part of their community. The response? Silence. Then a curt, "We'll be in touch." That was the last time anyone answered my calls. Soon, neighbors I had never met started giving me strange looks. One morning, I noticed a flyer slipped under my door, warning that my property was in violation of unspecified rules. I had done nothing wrong, no modifications, no complaints, no disturbances, but the message was clear. Someone was watching. Someone was judging, and someone had power over me that I didn't understand. The fines began to stack, small amounts at first, then larger, each labeled as penalties for violations that made no sense. A mailbox decal, a slightly overgrown bush, even the way my trash bins were positioned. Each letter carried a chilling implication: pay or face legal consequences. I felt cornered in my own home, powerless against an invisible bureaucracy that claimed authority over a property I didn't even own in their jurisdiction. Tried appealing, submitting emails, and gathering proof of residency outside their HOA, but nothing worked. Every attempt was met with silence, automated responses, or new letters doubling down on fines. The psychological toll was immediate. I couldn't relax at home. I couldn't trust my neighbors. And I started to dread opening the mailbox. Then came the official hearing. Notice. A day was set for me to appear in court. Though I had no contract with this HOA, no membership, and nothing tying me legally to their authority, panic and disbelief collided in my chest. How could a group of strangers claim the right to drag me into court? I felt the absurdity of it all clawing at my sense of security. Began documenting everything: letters, emails, photos of my property, timestamps, and even recordings of phone calls. Each piece of evidence painted the same picture. I was an innocent outsider being harassed by a private organization with an inflated sense of power. But would the judge see it that way? Or would this HOA's influence and the mountain of Intimidating paperwork sway the court against me. Days turned into weeks, each more stressful than the last. Every knock at the door made my heart race. Every email notification filled me with dread. I started to notice small things around the neighborhood, a car parked suspiciously near my house, a neighbor who seemed to linger just a bit too long while walking past, and a mailbox I didn't recognize left open on the corner. It was as if the HOA's reach extended beyond paper into the very air around me. One morning, I received a particularly menacing letter. Fines were now accruing daily, and if I failed to appear in court, default judgment could be entered against me. The letter threatened property liens, legal fees, and potential eviction notices. I reread it 3 times, each word sinking into me like a stone in my stomach. How could this be happening? I was just trying to live quietly, tending my garden, minding my own business, and yet I was being dragged into a legal nightmare for simply existing, outside their control. As the court date approached, I felt a mix of determination and dread. I knew I couldn't back down if I ignored them. They would try to crush me with fines and legal threats. I had to fight. But how do you fight an organization that claims power over your life without any legitimate authority? My anxiety was palpable, but beneath it burned a stubborn flame of resolve. I refused to let them bully me out of my home. Then came the final twist before the hearing. I discovered evidence of other homeowners who had faced similar harassment, some who had been forced to pay, and others who had successfully challenged the HOA's authority. Their stories gave me hope, but also deepened my anger. How could a private group wield such power unchecked? I realized that this wasn't just about me, it was about standing up to an abuse of authority that could ruin anyone's life if left unchallenged. The tension reached a boiling point as I prepared my case, gathering documents, reaching out to witnesses, and meticulously organizing every detail. Every day felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. One misstep, one overlooked form, and the HOA could claim victory. And all the while, the letters continued to arrive. Each one a reminder that the fight wasn't over, that the absurdity and pettiness of their actions would continue until I made them countable. By the time the hearing arrived, the stage was set for confrontation. Emotions ran high, fear, frustration, and determination mingled into a single unstoppable drive. The absurdity of being summoned by a group I never agreed to join had reached its peak. Little did I know, the events about to unfold in that courtroom would expose the truth in a way I never imagined and completely dismantle the power this HOA thought it held over me. The day of the hearing arrived, and my nerves were stretched taut, every muscle coiled like a spring. I stepped into the courtroom, the air heavy with tension. The HOA representatives were already there, smug, confident, and convinced their paper trail and petty rules would intimidate anyone. I felt a mixture of fear and determination, knowing this moment could define the outcome of everything I had endured. I walked out of the courtroom that day. A mix of relief, triumph, and disbelief washed over me. I had faced an absurd, relentless power and come out victorious. Word spread quickly among neighbors. The HOA that wasn't supposed to have power had been dismantled. Some came to congratulate me quietly, nodding or whispering in awe, acknowledging the absurdity of what had happened. Others seemed skeptical, as though the idea of a private organization being completely shut down was impossible. But the proof was undeniable. For a while, there were calls and emails from other residents, strangers really, asking questions about the process and seeking advice for similar harassment. I became an unintentional advocate, sharing the lessons I had learned. As months passed, the neighborhood slowly adjusted to the absence of the HOA. Without the looming threat of fines and surveillance, a more genuine sense of community emerged. People were freer to maintain their property as they saw fit, engage with neighbors without fear, and enjoy the environment without a constant undercurrent of judgment. The absurdity of what had occurred, the petty rules, the false dues, the intimidation, was still a topic of conversation, but it had shifted from fear to incredulity and, eventually, to empowerment. Looking back, I realized that the ordeal was more than a personal battle. It was a lesson in vigilance, in accountability, and in standing up for one's rights. Finally, I recognized that the most powerful takeaway from this experience was not just legal, Victory but personal growth. I had faced intimidation, absurdity, and fear head-on and emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident in my ability to navigate conflicts. As I sit in my garden, watching the sun set over streets once shadowed by fear and now filled with light, I reflect on the absurdity and triumph of it all.